2019, I went to Katowice, to the COP24 climate summit with CAFOD. They sent a delegation. We went on a coach overnight. Pretty grueling, I have to say, but not quite as bad as I thought it might be. And this is a picture of our little group from the steps of Katowice Cathedral. We gathered on the Sunday morning for the Mass there, and formed, as you can see, well, sort of formed this figure of 1.5 degrees, because at that time, the hope was the great kind of rallying cry for all of the campaigning that we were doing, and every sort of organisation around us was 1.5 to stay alive. That's where we are now. So what do you do when the kind of the focus, the hope that you had been working towards is no longer there for you? Obviously, you know, we're told some temperature might come down again. We don't know. We know there are reasons for this year's particular spike with El Nino. But another theory, another thing that could be going on is the reduction in aerosols in the atmosphere, which is causing a greater sort of brightening of the atmosphere and therefore trapping more energy. So we may well be in this for the long term, and actually we don't know where it's going to end. That's probably the biggest thing that, if I were to be staying awake at night, which thankfully I'm not, that would be the thing that keeps me awake. So, what is it that we hope for now? What does hope mean? And in fact, I've got 5 questions about hope. You may have questions as well. Hopefully today, we will be able to share our questions about what hope means for us. And we might find that it's different for all of us, or we might find that there are groups of us that converge on one definition, one understanding, one sort of construction of the future, and we can find each other and make common cause, whilst there are still others who have a very different view, and perhaps hope doesn't mean much at all, or it doesn't mean what it was supposed to mean, or it doesn't mean what it used to mean. Here are my 5 questions. Firstly, is it actually honest to speak of hope at all now, given the diagnosis? You know, the best that we can achieve is that we don't make things a heck of a lot worse than they are already becoming. That doesn't seem to be a great kind of foundation for hope. Is hope the only possible motive for action? I'm feeling, for all the journey beyond hope, and I'll come on to that I've been on, I don't think that hope is the only possible motive for action. There are plenty of others. Courage, anger, well, you know, what's going on in your heart. But these new motives, you know, have been particularly called forth by a lot of the non-violent direct action that we've seen, for instance. You know, that actually calls on the concern, the anxiety, the anger, the courage that people have within them that can drive their campaign. Thirdly, is it sustainable to advocate hope, or at least hope as we might have known it? Hope as an aim for a target. Is it sustainable to do that anymore? Where does it leave us if that target is overreached, if it falls away, if it's no longer there for us to aim for? What do we do? Are we going to pack our bags? Are we going to rethink what we were aiming for? What kind of risk of despair does that pitch us into? But then I've got a 4th question. If you surrender hope, does despair naturally fill the gap? I hope you can hear my doubt about that. If you cling to a hope that's only about the results, then yeah, probably despair is the only logical conclusion. So hope isn't about what's going to happen then, is it? It's about, it's about something else. In borrowed time, on the website, there you'll find that we use the phrase, in the climate emergency, beyond hope and despair lies a time between worlds, a kind of level ground to live and act with courage, love and equanimity. So there's something beyond perhaps where the assumptions that we brought with us. And then fifthly, whose hope are we talking about? Because here in the UK, with a temperate climate and with a very, functioning economy, we, to a certain extent, we're pretty well we're quite well insured against the risks that we're facing. How long that will continue, we don't know. But look what's happening overseas. Look at the injustice that's being meted out around the world now in countries other than ours. We can too easily turn the blind eye to that. What right do we have to harbour, to nurture any sense of hope when people in the global south are going through dispossession and suffering far more than I think probably we in this country will ever will. So that brings us into questions of climate justice, of racial justice, and of historical injustice as well around colonisation of the rest of the world. Well, some of you may have come across some work called sort of under the banner of deep adaptation, and it's quite a controversial sort of set of thinking. There was a Professor Jim Bendell who wrote a paper called Deep Adaptation some years ago now, I think back in 2017 or 18. It was quite influential on me. I think I've moved a little bit further in some ways, but it also had quite a lot of pushback, particularly from the mainstream environmental movement, because they saw the whole question of collapse. Jim Bendell was basically talking about the collapse of society and how we reconceive hope in the context of what he believed was, and still believes, is not just likely collapse, but collapse that is already happening. It's already beginning to play out. There was a lot of pushback against that in the mainstream movement, but also within Extinction Rebellion, because, perhaps one reason, elements of Extinction Rebellion weren't ready for that kind of thinking, and perhaps didn't think it was true. So I want to highlight, identify, tease apart three types of hope that I think we could play with in our conversation. Firstly, hope for. When you hope for something, you're aiming for something. You were aiming for that 1.5 degrees back in 2019. It still seemed a possibility. We're part of this onward march, and there's something in this that's connected with the kind of great march of progress. Ever since the Enlightenment, things have been getting better and better every year, haven't they? Well, possibly not if you talk to anyone who's under 25 now. So, is that march beginning to falter? I would say it is, and I think now that we're into the Anthropocene, hope for is becoming something really quite questionable. But hope for, is the one that you risk tipping into despair from, I would say. But that's not the only kind of hope. There's hope in. And we can place hope in each other, in the fact that we come together today, and we are just a few representatives of 1,100 people, just within Green Christian, and all the people that believe the same as us, all the people that are working together. It might be divine providence, human creativity, and an alternative culture. We can put our hope in something that we can do together. But I wonder if, will that actually deliver? Do we know? Can it? Is it enough just to put hope in and just hope for the best? I feel we need to go a bit further, personally, and there's something beyond all of that, which actually I found quite difficult to explain. But it's kind of beyond what our culture understands as hope at all. But I think possibly it's a bit closer to what theology knows as hope, actually. Theological hope. Hope is a virtue. Hope is a virtue that is is alive regardless of of the reality around it, and keeps going because it's got a divine providence. So hope beyond is sober about our predicament, and it won't be drawn on the future. It won't make any assumptions, and it won't make any assertions or claims or ambitions about what the future will be, but nonetheless is stable within itself. It enables us to navigate these sort of collapsing certainties that are around us, and still maintain a still centre. And I think, yes, theology, but actually contemplation is where it belongs. It's in contemplation, contemplative prayer, that the weight of that centre, that balance, that personal balance belongs. And this is, for me, hope that's free from the future, because in being free from the future, whatever the future brings, it's free for the future as well. So what I've done there is try and pull apart some of my struggles with the word hope. I wanted to hear from Ruth because I didn't do you a slide, Ruth. The reason it's important to hear from Ruth, and in fact anyone else who's been involved in non-violent direct action, is I think there might be something else going on there, and I want to hear what it is. And I know there are people here who've been involved with Ruth and things like that. So tell us a little bit about what hope means for you, and it might sound quite different.
Thank you. Well, I thought about this and wrote this on the train up here, so it's not. And 3 points really. So my hope is in 3 places, I suppose. Firstly, hope that God can make some small use of my life. And then to do that, you need to think, what does God need doing? And if you look at history, civil disobedience has changed things faster than most other things. Could it be that God's calling us to take civil disobedience? And why not? Jesus' kingdom was not and is not of this world. He consciously and overtly chose to break the social and religious laws of that time to show just that. And even if we fail, or perhaps more truthfully, when we fail, living a life that is refusing to comply with the system, that is destroying the future, is for me a hopeful way to live. And finding ways to rebel against the government that is providing legislation and finance to activities that they know will lead to the deaths of billions is not only the right way to live, but also liberating. Because in doing that, I can be hopeful that my life has meaning and that my life is more in line with God's kingdom. And hope is also a feeling. And I don't know whether this is actually just one or two put together, but just an example, last October, with other insular Britain activists, Reverend Sue Parfitt and I glued ourselves together onto the street outside Parliament. It was a Wednesday. Liz Truss was about to pass by to do PMQs. It was morning, so of course Sue had to do morning prayer. So we were sitting there on the road, glued to the road outside Parliament, and a non-Christian protester next to us was saying he was feeling anxious. And so we invited him to join us. And we prayed, and we were fully present to this place of power and this moment in history. And our fellow protester thanked us afterwards and said he was feeling more peaceful. And that just felt hopeful, it just felt right. And when we were found not guilty at a magistrate court 2 weeks ago, that also felt very hopeful. But more importantly, of course, as Paul sort of alluded to earlier, and another Paul alluded to earlier again, hope is only one of 3 things. And the greatest of these is love. And so holding on to that as a basis for all we do, I think is really important, and our hope and faith may grow dim, but it's love that will hold us if we let it.
You'll have to send that in somewhere. Thank you very much. Yeah. I thought it was important to hear that view, because it's not something that we, because we're interested in charity, we don't get involved in as a charity, as an organisation, in direct action, but many of our members do. And it's important, I think, that we learn from working together in that experience for something that we can do together as Green Christians.